I want to talk a little bit about my dad's physicality, because it's one of the most powerful memories I have of him. I basically went hiking with him 20, maybe 25 weekends a year for several years in the 1970s. I always looked up to him. He just had this tremendous energy and spirit when he would go out in the woods. I think he loved the American Indian, he loved nature, he loved Thoreau, he loved the energy that the wilderness gave him.
My perspective was different from especially my older brothers, because they somehow had lived under the mistaken belief that there were choices involved. From my perspective, it was like, get in the car, we're going on a car trip. We've camped in people's yards when we couldn't find a camping place. We've picnicked in cemeteries because there's grass in cemeteries, and in front of courthouses because that was a public space. And most weekends we're hiking or canoeing, almost every weekend sometimes. And in the winter it was cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or chopping wood. And in the springs it was maple syrup, and which we boiled on a stove.
One of the things that I really loved doing with my dad in the last 10 years was going to Lake Temagami in northern Ontario in the summer in August, which is a beautiful time to be there. He just loved living so much that even if the conditions, the weather was hostile and we were cold or whatever, he just had a vitality, he had a warmth to him that it didn't seem to touch him. If we would be hiking in the mountains, it would be cold and people would be wearing windbreaker stuff. He'd have no shirt on. It was just like the energy just like flowed out of him and kept him warm and warmed us all. He's really an inspiration.
I think if there's a lesson anyone can take, it's just, you just get up and you just do it. You may have no freaking idea how you're going to actually get it done, like none at all, but you just do it. And the other part is that he trusted in everyone else around him to be there with him. He didn't do it by himself. None of those trips were by himself. It was always, a group, always a team.
I met Bill canoeing. I bought a canoe trip at an auction for bunch of friends, and he took us out to Lake Ozette, and I think what I was immediately struck with by Bill was just the pure delight, absolute delight that he took in the smallest task, the smallest detail.
Very soon after I met him, it must have been the first day, I found out he was a real enthusiast of George Gordon, Lord Byron. And so I thought, well, here's a prep school teacher, former prep school teacher, loves Byron. I bet he can read really well. Let's give it a try. And so when we got to the Byron part of the syllabus, I just handed it over to him and I had him stand up and read it. And so he would stand up in the room and hold the book very straight and tall, and he would just give Byron all he had. And it was fantastic because the whole class would just be entranced by this man reading Byron. My husband and I were thinking about people to read at the wedding, and it kind of hit me like a lightning bolt. I thought, Bill has to come and read Whitman, obviously. Reading Whitman almost exactly 10 years later for Bill at his funeral, what I really tried to do was think about how that closing of Song of Myself, the end of his poem, he imagines himself just letting go. He lets go. He becomes the earth that he loves. So one of the people that wrote about Bill after he died said that Bill has become the weather that he loved. And that's really what I think we really like to think of Bill having done. He just let go and he effused his flesh and eddies into nature, and we can find him under our boot soles. He helped me start my marriage, and I helped him end his life, and it's a great privilege.
I depart as air, I shake my white locks at the runaway sun. I effuse my flesh into eddies and drift it in lacy jags. I bequeath myself to the dirt to grow from the grass I love. If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles. You will hardly know who I am or what I mean, but I shall be health to you nevertheless, and filter and fiber your blood. Failing to fetch me at first, keep encouraged. Missing me one place, search another. I stop somewhere waiting for you.
Well, we met Bill on a canoe trip. So we did several canoe trips with him, and I'll never forget the first trip because we're sitting around this giant campfire, and he starts quoting beautiful English poetry, and then one of our friends, who actually I think bought the canoe trip, starts to tell the what's it called? The Robert
Cremation
Service
of Sam McGee.
Cremation of Sam McGee. And Bill just, you could just see Bill. He was just so thrilled that someone else
He just lit
could
up.
recite, without any coaching or anything. And he was just the most energetic, enthusiastic, full of life person, and knew how to make everyone comfortable camping.
I had the luck to meet him after my first year in Seattle when I was invited on one of the canoe trips. It was the second day in, and I had gone for a swim in the lake, and when I came back, Bill said, "I want you to teach skiing with me." I said, "Why?" And he said, "If you can swim like that, you can teach skiing." So I got to go on subsequent canoe trips and teach skiing with him.
We're longtime booksellers in Seattle and got to know Bill through his love of books, especially Lord Byron, John Steinbeck, and countless others.
Never shy about sharing his interest or his excitement about things. And one of the things I always used to laugh about was that he would come into the shop, pick up a volume of poetry, and then he would announce, "John and Taylor, I'm going to read you a poem." Didn't say, "Would you like me to read a poem?" He just said, "I am going to read you a poem," and he would do so, and it would be great every time. We will miss him very much.
Tim Krell, Robin Krell, who lived next door to Bill and Barbara for many years on 45th Street in Fremont. And it was always fun for us to be anytime Bill was around, with him, near him, enjoying his personality. And oftentimes it was early in the morning on the weekends when Robin would go out onto our porch and she would retrieve the newspaper, and she'd be in her sweatpants and pajamas, and her hair would be all amiss, and Bill would be having coffee on the porch next door, and he would see Robin come out on the porch, and he would say, "Robin, I've never seen you look so ravishing." And Robin would say,
Bill, have you been drinking whiskey already this morning?
he was such a great guy, and we love him very much. We'll miss him.
He taught us to first cross-country ski, and along the years he made us bourbon aficionados, and he loved coming to our house for dinner. And I think we had him for dinner many, many, many times, like over 70 times.
The phrase goes, "Coco's Kitchen is open, Bill." Did Bill ever turn you down? No. Not a chance.
He made every experience with him unforgettable. He would always come up with these stories wherever he went. I remember when I was really little, one of the first experiences was he took us to a stream, and he told us that there are little things living in the stream, and then he came up with a song called "Water, Water, Sing Me a Song." So that's a very vivid early memory of mine. I remember hiking up with him on Cannon Mountain, and there he went on a walk with me, and he talked to me a lot about the weather, and he knew a lot about it, but he told me about some really cool features, like this thing called Virgo, where it's rain that comes down and then evaporates before it hits the ground. He also decided that he wanted to be known as the Starbucks person on the mountain, so he went around to everybody on the mountain and asked everybody where the Starbucks was, even though there was no Starbucks on the mountain. So that was pretty fun. He always just had these ideas just about how to turn every single experience with him into a story, and that's what was really great about it.
My husband, David Black, was a very close friend of Bill's. They taught school at Noble and Greeno back in Dedham, Mass. Bill, every year on David's birthday, May 31st, would call David and wish him a happy birthday, which is mentioned in the service today, that he kept track of his good friends' birthdays. So I love Bill's zest for life, and I really enjoyed the fact that when he's excited about something, he'd come back, "Let me tell you what I did today," and then bug-eyed. And that's his whole attitude toward life. Total zest.
How I met him, I was at the St. Demetrios Church Greek Festival in 2001. And they had a little book stall, books relating to Greece or by Greek writers there. And I was perusing the titles, and this older man came up to me suddenly and said, "Would you like to hear a poem by C.P. Cavafy," whom at that time I had not heard of. He said, "It's called Waiting for the Barbarians." And he started reading me this poem. He left an impression on me. We talked maybe for 45 minutes or an hour. Several months later, I said, I'd really like to talk to that man again. And I actually looked him up in the phone book. I would meet up maybe every couple of weeks for coffee, or in my case, tea. And we would just talk.
O'Driscoll scattered the cards and out of his dream awoke. Old men and young girls were gone like a drifting smoke. But he heard high up in the air a pipe piping away. And never was piping so sad, and never was piping so gay. Most of the year. I've known Bill for 53 years. I was a student, and fortunate to be so. Poetry is huge, and we did a lot of poetry. And there's one thing that I really would like to record. I've mentioned it to others. When I was a senior in college, I wrote to Bill and told him that I had won a prize for my poetry and filled him in on a lot of other details. And I assume I got a reply in return, I don't know. Our first real meeting here in Seattle, he produced that letter. After 30 or 40 years, I was flabbergasted. He both remembered and could find and produce this letter.
I remember we would always sit by the fireplace in front of his cabin. We'd sit by the fire pit roasting marshmallows and looking at the sunset.
I hope I read a lot, because I don't read a lot. And I like the way he traveled. I like my mother traveled.
Like leaves. He does like leaves. And what else? You enjoyed visiting him, didn't you? Okay. He loves holding you. Just like he loves everybody. You talk to him. You are the only one in the room, and everything else, nothing else seems to matter. And he just wants to hear from you and give him more information. He wants to hear it all and enjoy your life with you. And you walk away from talking with Bill, and you feel like you are the most wonderful person in the world.
This has been a really, truly beautiful outpouring of love for and honoring of Bill's spirit by people that really appreciated and loved him. And we're all going to miss him. One of the poems I almost read in the service was this Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it's just so emblematic of Bill, so totally typical of him, that I wanted to read that for this video. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of the intelligent people and the affection of children. To earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends. To appreciate beauty, to find the best in others. To leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, or a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, or, in Bill's case, by a compliment. To know that one life has breathed easier because you were here. This is to have succeeded. And Bill really succeeded. These people here understand that, and we're very happy that we can do this. This has been a labor of love.
It's like this very big tree with lots of branches and really deep roots that are, I mean, something that when you look at it, it's like, oh, that's really, really nice. And then once you climb it and once you like sit next to it for a while, it's something that you understand the true complexity of it after a while, and then begin to appreciate I am only seeing one part of the person, but they are so much more than what I am seeing. And I can only hope to, you know, at least appreciate the part of Bill that I knew as being his grandson, and seeing all the people today and how touched they were in many different aspects of their lives. They all had different things, different parts of the tree that they like to sit on, you know, and it was really cool to see that.
By his very nature, his native curiosity and enthusiasm, Bill encouraged me in ways that were deeply important to who I really am. This sort of person, in my experience, is a rarity and provides one a standard to live by. I know I'm not alone in feeling a great confidence in having Bill in my life, lucky me, for years. And I feel honored to be here today, a mouthpiece for so many, many souls, gently celebrated and lovingly mentored by his kind and wise presence.
I'm going to miss him a lot. My sister, Ellie, wrote up a really nice book of pictures where she talked about my dad and how he was present in nature, and how whenever she was in nature, she would remember him and she would see him. So I think whenever I am in nature, in the woods, on the water, I will certainly feel his presence.
I learned, just for his benefit, The Mariner's Revenge, which is kind of a little bit violent, but it starts out inside of a whale, and he was really all about, he loved Moby Dick. He would read Moby Dick to us every New Year's that I spent with him. Besides that, I used to play hymn love songs, and anything that was kind of old, he just really adored. And he would have me play it again, more, don't stop playing, he would say.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep. Bill stepped into the woods, but his light will shine on long after he's gone.